Most times, it's the invisible things that create the most damage. Did you know that some of the tiniest organisms out there are responsible for some of the most grievous diseases known to man? Surprisingly, there are other organisms that are smaller than bacteria. Well, according to scientists, bacteria are the tiniest organisms that are still alive. However, there are still little tiny parasites that feed on both the smallest bacteria and humans alike. A parasite is an organism that relies on a host organism to live and obtain its nourishment, often at the host's expense. In humans, three primary classes of parasites can lead to diseases: protozoa, helminths, and ectoparasites, and none of them sound friendly. A health publication named Yukon Health researched a gene of bacteria parasites in the 2023 edition of the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. It was reported that although bacteria parasites may impede individual bacteria, they could potentially benefit the overall bacteria population. Here are some parasites that fall into the category of the tiniest. Now, the good old-fashioned Trichinella spiralis, which is a nematode worm that belongs to the family Trichinellidae. It has a fascinating life cycle that starts when humans consume undercooked or raw meat infected with its larvae. Once inside our bodies, these tiny parasites make their way into our muscles and establish themselves as unwelcome guests. While Trichinella spiralis can cause a condition known as trichinellosis, it's important to note that this infection is rare in developed countries due to proper cooking practices and food safety regulations. Entines are among the parasite genes that feed on single-celled organisms. Entines can also feed on bacteria, archaea, and yeast. Entines have the ability to house themselves in the cell DNA of its host for a very long time, as long as they've not been discovered. Aside from the entine parasite being one of the tiniest parasites, the Guinness World Record has recorded a tiny parasite that is about 0.5 to 1 millimeter long. This parasite is called Pneumocystis carinii. This parasite inhabits the alveolar part of the human lungs and causes pneumonia in the human body. PC, which is a pneumonia-causing parasite, appears in two forms, namely the trophozoite and the cyst forms. You might be surprised to know that cysts are the primary cause of death among those who died of HIV. Okay, let's continue this important discussion by looking at other tiny parasites that may be on your skin without your knowledge. Protozoa is a single-celled organism that's either parasitic or free-living, as the case may be. This parasite can spread by bites from arthropods or the fecal-oral route. A good example of these arthropods are mosquitoes. Going further, have you ever heard of traveler's disease? Or maybe you've contracted one before. Well, this disease comes from a protozoa called Cryptosporidium, which, despite its name, is not a cryptocurrency. Cryptosporidium is found among people who are victims of traveler's diarrhea. Even though people easily survive this disease, it still causes distressing symptoms among those who have suffered from it. Oh, this lovely little chomper. This is an ectoparasite that infests the hair and other parts of the human body. The infestation of this ectoparasite is asymptomatic and can be pathogenic on rare occasions. The Demodex mite is found on the eyebrows, eyelashes, chin, nose, cheeks, temples, forehead, neck. You get the idea. According to research published by the Indian Journal of Dermatology, Demodex can act as a vector for various infections. Almost everyone has the Demodex mites, but it's usually not a problem being the host of this parasite. The only challenge is that it multiplies really quickly on people who are immunocompromised or people who have an impaired immune system. Even though its name kind of sounds like a chocolate, many of us are actually sufferers of this particular parasite because it's everywhere. So let's take a closer look. Giardia is one of the tiniest parasites. They cause a kind of diarrhea called giardiosis. This organism is mostly found on surfaces, food, or water, but only when they're contaminated with feces from infected people or even animals. Well, I did tell you that it is everywhere. This is why personal hygiene is so important. That aside, when we take in Giardia germs either in our water or food, there's a high possibility that you're gonna be infected by Giardiosis. The Giardia parasite is known to be an intestinal parasite, and some of its symptoms include stomach cramps, bloating, nausea, and bouts of super watery diarrhea. Sounds like somebody ate some tacos or fried chicken. Even though it sounds like something you might be drinking at a bachelorette party, okay? Schistosomiasis, also known as bilharzia, is an infection that's caused by a parasitic worm, and not the kind you find in tequila. This worm finds its home in fresh water, which means this parasitic worm is common in areas with more fresh water. A good example would include places like South Africa, South America, the Caribbean or Caribbean, the Middle East, and Asia. The infection doesn't often come with obvious signs, but can stay for years, feeding on its host and multiplying itself, causing more damage and slowly destroying the bladder, kidney, and liver. Most people are infected when a larva is discharged by freshwater snails, and it penetrates the human skin when it comes in contact with the infested water. Oh, so that's why some cultures eat snails. Prevention. Well, for you to stay safe from this parasite, it's very advisable to keep yourself protected when you're around fresh water, because you can never tell when it's going to penetrate your body. Tropical and subtropical regions, as well as more temperate regions, experience a significant burden of disease due to parasitic infections. Malaria is one parasitic disease that kills the most people worldwide. Each year, more than 400,000 people die from malaria, of which the most are children in sub-Saharan Africa. The public health community has neglected to pay enough attention to parasitic diseases like lymphatic filariasis, onchocerciasis, and guinea worm disease, which are referred to as neglected tropical diseases. Also, thank you, Google pronunciation guides. More than 1 billion individuals worldwide are affected by NTDs, mostly in rural parts of developing nations. These diseases place a heavy toll on endemic populations, including the loss of the capacity to go to work or school, the slowing of children's growth, the impairment of young children's cognitive skills and development, and the severe economic burden placed on entire nations. Nevertheless, parasitic illnesses can also affect people who live in developed nations. If you found the information in this video educational and fascinating, then I've done a good job. My goal here is to bring you some highly educational health information with a little bit of entertaining presentation of the facts so that you can enjoy learning. Just don't ride me too hard on some of the pronunciation. These words are hard. Anyway, if you like this video, then you're definitely gonna like other videos just like this one on this channel. Follow the prompt on your screen right now to watch the next educational and entertaining health video on our channel. And while you're doing that, remember to subscribe to the channel if you're new here and give all my videos a thumbs up to encourage me to keep on going. And as always, thank you very much for choosing to spend your time with us today. We'll see you in the next video.